Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zanker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Welcome, friends. I am so happy that you are here today because you are going to meet somebody with heart and soul who is going to inspire you, and who knows what else you're going to take away from this. I'm so excited. Ken Hartley is here today. Not only is he a dear speaker friend that we have been in some masterminds together, but he's also a wonderful, inspirational keynote speaker and a belief architect. You'll get to find out what that is, who empowers you to see past the illusions of leadership and communication so that you can become the leader that others actually want to know. He's been in top-level leadership in organizations ranging from only 90 people to 13,000 people. He's a CSP, which means he's a certified speaking professional with the National Speakers Association, and he carries a certification in leadership from John Maxwell's team, and he's a recognized expert in the DISC model of human behavior. And additionally, before we get started, you need to know that he won the Merlin Award for Corporate Inspirational Magician of the Year. So you heard, and that was in 2024. You heard the illusion. So now we know that there's a little bit more to that. So without further ado, Ken, welcome to the show.
Penny, I'm thrilled to be here with you and your audience.
Well, we're excited to tap into it. So let's start with the illusion. Like, what's the illusion? Are you an illusionist?
I am an illusionist.
Oh my goodness.
This started when I was 8 years old, and my grandparents gave me a little plastic magic set for Christmas. And every year that was the deal. When I went to see my grandmother, she lived in Independence, Missouri, I would have to walk in the door, give her a hug, and show her a magic trick. And so I was always learning something new. And my father was a professor at a university, and I would go to the library and check out every book I could on magic and began to learn, but I didn't show anybody I did anything until I was 21 years old, other than family. Nobody knew I did it.
But you did it for your grandmother. I think that's like, there's such a more inspiration, right? To do it every time your grandmother walked in the door, you wanted to have something new. Like, that's so cool.
And it was a lot of fun, and at that time too, obviously way before internet, I'm an extremely curious person. So when I would see something on TV or see somebody doing some kind of trick, I would always want to know, how did they do that? How do they do it? And so I would dig in, and if I couldn't find a method, then I would make myself make up a method that could work. So it caused me to come up with things that other people previously had. I didn't grow up around other magicians, didn't know anybody. I'm from a little town, Jackson, Tennessee, and I didn't know any other magicians in the area, so kind of taught myself and learned how to do it. But for people that can see this, all of those books right there behind me, those are all books on magic and illusion.
Wow. Right. That's cool. Well, when you're into something, you're into it, right?
Absolutely. As most magicians will tell you, that's a deep dive. It's easy to get into the books and into the big boxes of tricks that you go, this looks like a really good trick, and you buy it and go, and then it stays in a box for about 10 years.
Right.
But I enjoy doing the illusions. I do. They're a lot of fun.
And so that, there's so much to unpack with you, because that's only one small slice, right? That's illusionist meets, tell us just briefly about the other parts of yourself that all have come together into you as a speaker. There's another illusion, right, that you dance around.
There is. And it's the basic illusion that people say it all the time. Seeing is believing. And it is such a lie when we focus only on what we can see. We choose that to become our reality. And what I do when I go to places, I utilize the illusions, obviously for entertainment, but also to illustrate the point that you can't trust your eyes. And you can see something that's not visible with your eyes, but you can see it in your head and in your heart. That can eventually become your reality if you're willing to invest in it.
But I also meant, like, you're also a man of faith.
I am.
Sing. Like, tell us about some of those other aspects of your life as well.
Well, for 34 years, I was full-time in churches as a staff member. I was a pastor on the staff. I wasn't the lead pastor, but I led music in the
Mhm.
church, some very large music programs. I think the largest one had about 1,200 in it, and 250 voice choir, orchestra. And odd fact, I've also actually sung a solo in Carnegie Hall in New York. So I
Cool.
have that background that I brought in. And when I started this journey, I wanted to know why some people that I worked with seemed like they were unbelievable leaders and some people weren't. So it was the same exact curiosity of wanting to figure out the bells, the whistles, the smoke, the mirrors, trying to find all those little pieces out that led me to go, I want to know what makes a good leader. What really makes a good leader? And the person that I look to as a person of faith, obviously, it was Christ. I mean, and he gave the greatest leadership speech ever given, which was just two words: follow me. Now, anybody else that walked up to somebody and said, follow me, they'd go, you're crazy. He could do it because of the magnitude of who he is. And I wanted to know, what was it that builds such incredible belief inside somebody that forms them into a leader that people go, I'd follow them.
Hmm. So this is before we dig deeper into that, because that's what you're talking about today. You've recently taken a big reset, right? We talk about the power of reset moments and resets to help us to stay on track and stay aligned with our goals, our values, and our intentions. And you recently left everything that there it is, the
Yes.
reset mindset, right? So
Boom, there it is, right there. I love your book. As you know, we were at an event together that speakers go to in December. And the thing that I love about this, what it makes me think of, is growing up playing the little video games that we had, that if the level ever wasn't going right, those really old school ones just had one little button, you'd go boop, reset, just
that's
start the
right.
thing all over again. And yeah, I did that in my life. I did because, like I said, for 34 years, all I'd ever known was a W 2 from a grocery store, a restaurant, or a church. That's all I ever had.
So how did
And
you know it was time to reset? A lot of people asks me that they're really fascinated about how do you know when it's time and when do you do it? So how did you know that it was time for you to reset?
there's two things, and that's a great question. There's two things. And number one, life will give you hints. If
And
you're
I
right,
always say to people, we just don't pay attention. They are everywhere. We're just not listening.
exactly. And
Okay.
so when I first started out leading music in churches, the people that were mentors, heroes of mine, these were guys who were in their 50s, 60s that had been doing this for 30 something, 40 years. But the music in churches kind of morphed into a different thing during my time. And at one point, the leader came up and said, Hey, you're really doing great at leading people. You've got a great voice. What you're doing is really fantastic. You're just getting up there in age. And I went, What? Because I didn't know I had a shelf life.
There was a but. I heard
Exactly.
it coming right in the tone, but you're getting up
But
there.
but
Yeah,
you're getting up there in age, and we want to put younger faces up there. Well, I had younger faces all around me, but they wanted the main person to be a young person. And
right.
and please hear me. No
Because young
bitterness
people
in
want to
this.
see themselves and they want to bring more younger people to the church. I can
Yes.
understand. That doesn't make it right. You're in that position and you're doing a great job, but I can
Right.
understand.
So for me, it caused me to go, well, if I'm not doing this, what else am I going to do?
Mm.
And I had never asked myself that question before.
So
And
that was a gift.
it was, and it truly was. And somewhere tucked in the back of my consciousness was this thing of, if I could be a speaker, kind of like a Zig Ziglar or a Jim Rohn or an Andy Andrews, wow, I would love that. But it was tucked back there in the area labeled impossible.
It was in that box that you said you put away for many years. You had to
Ex-
blow all the dust off of it. That
exactly.
dream.
Yeah. And so it wasn't anything I thought I could do.
Hmm.
And so suddenly I thought, if I'm not going to do this, what can I do? And I thought, there's never been a better time in my life. Now, at this point, I'm 50 years old. There's never been a better time in my life to go, why not now? If not now, when?
When? Right.
Exactly. And so I wanted to go for it. I wanted to go for it full on. And so I did. I started looking for speaker training. I started Googling different things. And part of it started with the leadership with the John Maxwell team was step number one, because a friend of mine that I knew really well, who was a music director in a church, had gone out from being a music director and was now doing some leadership training for different companies for the John Maxwell team. And I just said, well, tell me about your journey. And he told me. And so that's how I got connected to them. But they had a speaker training in there, but I realized the speaker training they gave wasn't going to get me what I needed to. It was very good from the standpoint of learning to develop a story and the basics of speaking on stage, how to carry yourself, but I needed something more. And it's really amazing in life how one thing links you to another, to another, to another. And so that John Maxwell team linked me to a person who I took disc training from because I wanted to understand people. And that person knew a guy who was a speaker trainer. His name was Delatoro McNeil, and he is just an absolute beast. But he's also, I call, a freak of nature. And the reason I say that is because he has the unique ability to be up on a stage and command a crowd phenomenally well, but he also has this unique ability to teach it. And most of the time you see people, they can't really do both.
Right.
He was great at doing both. And so I stepped in and said, I want to learn how to do this. And then he told me how much it was. And then I went, I don't think I can do this because it was expensive.
It's interesting because a lot of people don't invest in themselves because they feel like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But you're investing in your future. Obviously, you did it, right? And I'm sure you're glad that you did. But, what would you say to people out there who, because you're talking about belief, they don't have enough belief in themselves to believe that to invest in themselves? What do you say to them that are listening?
I started getting really honest with my fears. When I said, okay, well, I don't have the money, that's really not the fear. The fear was I would spend the money and lose all of it and have nothing to
Hmm.
show for it. That was the true fear.
Hmm.
That's what I say. People don't ever have a fear of heights. People have a fear of falling and dying. That's the fear.
Right.
So once I learned to name what the fear was, then all of a sudden there was a bit of rationality that came into my awareness of, instead of me asking, how much does this cost? I started asking the right question, which is, how much is this going to cost me if I don't do it?
Mm.
And it would cost me a lifetime of regret. I know I was living with this nagging, but what if? But what if you'd done this? But what if you'd stepped out? Early on, I was asked because of the magic stuff to MC a couple of, no, three large events called Get Motivated. And Zig Ziglar was actually on that program. And so I got to meet him.
Mm.
And he took out maybe 10 minutes, but it was 10 minutes that literally transformed my life
Mm.
because that's what planted the seed. That's where it still went in the impossible box because it wasn't until almost 10 years later that I went, okay, but the seed was planted, and you have to have that in you. That builds that belief. That's why I'm a belief architect, because I help people build that belief that's inside them. I help you design it so you understand why your brain is telling you you can't and how to rewire that into, I know I can.
Mm.
But that is the practicality side of, where am I going to get the money? Somebody made this statement to me because they said, how much money would you like to make? And at first, my belief level was so low, I thought, wow, if I could just get paid maybe $1,000, that would be amazing. To talk for an hour, that would be amazing. Well, I was speaking completely out of ignorance because nobody gets paid per hour. People don't realize the countless hours of preparation that have gone into that 1 hour to make it what it should be.
Hmm.
But then he just looked and said, why don't you add a zero to that? It just took my little minute brain and stretched it out into something I'd never considered before. Wow, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could. And then he said, well, Ken, I'll tell you, if it's too much for you to invest in yourself, it'll always be too much for you to make.
Mm. That's a really good statement.
And it was powerful. And I couldn't ask somebody to give to me what I was not willing to give to myself.
Mm.
And that was really the beginning of building the belief. And so Dell looked at me and said, okay. I said, I'm not sure about the money. He says, Ken, I just need to know, are you in or are you out? That's what I need to know.
Hmm.
And so I heard myself say, I'm in. He went, great. We'll talk soon. He hung the phone up. And And
Dude,
fear and dread set in, going, what have I just done? I've committed to do this. I don't know where it's going to come from. And about 2 hours later, I was on the phone with my mother, was talking with her about it, and said, Mom, I really feel like I need to make a career shift here into what I've always wanted to do. And to be fair, too, with this, I'd been on stage. I'd act, sing. I'd been on stages and done that. Did some commercials on television, even did a movie, little bitty role, but it's in a movie and it was on Amazon, so I count it. I have a credit on IMDb, so I count it. But that part wasn't the fearful part. It was the resource part. And then thinking, can I really do this and make a living? And my mom said to me, well, no, you're supposed to be one of the pastors at the church. And I said, Mom, I began to describe the process of me speaking to people. And by then I'd done 3 talks and people seemed to get something out of it. And as I'm describing it to her, Mom made this statement to me. Now, the mother who's known me for 50 plus years, she said, I've never heard you so passionate about something in my entire life, as only a mom can tell you, because she knows.
right? Well, hey, and she's known you your entire life, so she's entitled to say that.
Exactly. And so I said, well, that's true. I said, Mom, I
Wow.
feel like this is what I'm made for.
Right.
When I made
Wow.
that statement, she said, well, you don't know this, but I actually have a little bit of money. And I had no idea. And she said, I want to pay for the speaker training. And I went, Mom, that's your money. That's not mine. Please don't. She goes, no, no, no. I want to give it to you. In 48 hours, the money was in my account. I paid for the speaker training. And she said, just promise me 2 things. She said, promise me, number one, that you're going to follow through and do all this. And I said, I'll promise I will follow through and do all of this. And she said, number 2, promise me you can make a living at this because I'm too old for you to live with me. And she was 87 at the time. And I said, I promise. Fast forward 19 months, this place called me up and said, we want you to come speak for us on leadership for 4 minutes. And this is our budget. And the exact amount they quoted was the exact amount I had paid Dell for that speaker training. So I didn't cash the check. I took the check to my mother, who by that time was in hospice. And I
Mm.
went into her little room and I showed her the check and I said, Mom, I can make a living doing this. And I said, I got your money back. And she took the check and she pushed it back across the table to me. And she said, that's your money. She said, honey, go live your dream.
It's beautiful.
And I've never,
And here you are,
and here I am.
living the dream. That's beautiful.
So that
So
was the
I,
process of belief. That's the process that it took in me. And I remember another significant thing with Dell too, that when he said, can you do this? And I said, I think so. He went, no. He says, can you do it? And he says, look, Ken, you can do it. I know you don't have belief. Look, just borrow mine for a little bit and give it back later. And so I remember the day that I called him up and I said, hey, he goes, hey, tell me what's going on. I went, you can have it back now.
there you go. It's a process,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so before we move to the lightning round, so how do you translate that into what you talk about with leaders in just a couple sentences? How do you translate that into the leadership world for leaders?
The distance between where you are and where you want to be as a leader and where you want your organization to be is belief. That is the distance. And it is not a belief. I have to qualify this because belief can be so out there, so esoteric, so there's just this nebulous thing that you can't ever grab onto. That is not true belief. True belief is a conviction that is accompanied by action. If it's not accompanied by action, then it is not true belief.
Hmm.
Is something in you that says, I will die on this hill. You will find me at the top of the hill. You will find me dead on the side of the road, but you will not find me coming back down. It is that much conviction. When you have that type of belief inside you, then the rest of it becomes inevitable. That's part of what I help build. But the gap between there is that little nagging voice inside us going, you sure you can do this? What are you thinking? What if you fail? All those things. That's what we combat.
So if we switch into going towards a lightning round, but one question that leads us in there is I would call that like where that person would recognize that they hear the signal somewhere, whether it's in their voice, whether it's in the way people are responding to them. What's something, a reset practice that you have them do in that moment to either recognize it or to shift it? Do you know what I'm asking?
I think so, but you correct me if I'm wrong here. When I have those moments where I'm kind of drawn off course with it,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm starting to get off into the weeds, I always go back to the last thing I was absolutely sure of at that moment. And I don't let the circumstances of today dictate what I knew back then.
Hmm.
If I knew this was my plan, this was my purpose, this was my destiny, this was my dream, I hang on to that. And then I adjust the here and now to fit what I know. And I
Hmm.
eliminate what doesn't fit that mold. And I
Okay. So that's so you
ruthlessly
you
eliminate it.
bring yourself in alignment by going back to what you're certain about.
Exactly. Because my
Perfect.
belief back there, and we're linear human beings. We are bound by time. So I know that if I look back here and see this person, the person I'm going to be in 10 years is not that person. But what I do is I know who this person wants to be. And that
Hmm.
person wants to be something 10 years from now. I go to the person 10 years from now and I fill out this is all the qualities this person has.
Hmm.
And then everything in between there is adjusting my actions to match the identity of the 10-year from now person.
And I just want to highlight that adjusting the actions, right? Is that we are in constant adjusting based on what's going on around us. That's the whole concept of being and living with a reset mindset and recognizing these reset moments, these moments that we need to realign because we didn't recognize that we've gotten off track.
Yes. One other thing, too, I want to highlight with reset that was so important for me is between me being full time in that church and doing what I'm doing now, I did not know how to, not necessarily a reset. I didn't know how to take a pause. I didn't know how to breathe.
Well,
I didn't know how to
right.
rest.
Most people don't today.
Mm-mm. And
Mhm.
one of the most powerful things I've learned in this process of entrepreneurship, and the way I define entrepreneurship is caveman style. You basically eat whatever you kill. That's kind of how it goes. But I also take time to rest. It's built in. I haven't been on a stage in 3 weeks. Great. I'm going on stage next week, twice, but I have built in moments that I reset. I take time out. I take a nap. I had never done that before because I didn't have time. So all the things I previously didn't have time for are now built into my schedule.
I call those reset rhythms. When you can build in
Mm.
resets into your daily workflow, into your business process, these reset rhythms are essential, especially today where we're bombarded with distraction, everything vying for our attention in the next meeting that are all bound to each other, not a moment to think about what we need to do and what the best way is to do it or who do we need to contact, all of those different things, or just a moment to reimagine something and look for a new way to do it. So
Oh
those
yeah.
reset rhythms are absolutely essential. And that's why we all have different ones, right? That have worked for us in the past, or maybe we can learn something from other people's. So that being said, what's a quote that you turn to that helps you to reset your mindset when it's off?
Okay, when I don't want to do it, it's Jim Rohn. There are two great pains we will experience in life. One is the pain of discipline, the other is the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, the pain of
Hmm.
regret weighs tons. Choose your pain.
Hmm. A friend of mine, he says, pick your hard, right?
Hmm.
To do it now. And it's hard to deal with the consequences later if you didn't do it now. So pick your hard. So it's a little bit in that context.
Yeah, that's my.
So tell us a song that lifts you up.
It's a song. It's an old Christian contemporary song by Russ Taff called "I Still Believe," which is just so. I listened to it this morning. I ran 2 miles. That is always one of my songs. It's funny as I do running, I judge how far I have to go by how many songs I have to listen to complete the. I don't think about distance. I think about the number of songs. That's number four. When I get to number four, I've got three more songs after that one. But the bridge of that song says, "I'll march this road. I'll climb this hill upon my knees if I have to. I'll take my place upon this stage. I'll wait till the end of time for you."
That's
There's no going
beautiful.
back.
That's beautiful. What's one word that describes your life right now?
Belief.
Very in line.
Yeah. Belief.
And what didn't I ask you yet that you feel like you would be remiss if you didn't mention before we jump off?
Well, you've been so good. That's hard to answer. I would say if there's anything I could say, how do I deal with, now that you've done this, is it easier for you to process fear? And the answer to that's no.
Hmm.
No, I still feel the fear. I still feel the same feelings. I have learned to put those feelings in their proper perspective. with the understanding that if I have courage, then I can move past it. And I don't know who said that. I don't know where the quote originated, but courage is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to move forward in the face of it.
Mm-hmm. And to follow up on that question, then, are you able to move through it faster now?
Yes, that I am able to move through it faster because I recognize it for what it is. And this, to bring the conversation full circle, there's only a few principles of illusions that exist. There's a disappearance, there's a levitation, there's a reappearance. There's only a few principles, and then there's millions of applications for each one of those principles. But once you learn the principles, the question I get asked as a magician, okay, how did you do that? That's the big one. Will you tell me how you did it? No. But then the other one is, okay, I don't want you to tell me how you did yours, but I saw this person on TV. Will you tell me how they did theirs? The answer is going to be no for that one too.
Right. Okay. I was going to say, would you? That's okay.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Right.
But then they always follow up with, well, do you really know how it's done? And the answer to that question is almost always yes. Because, and every now and then people will fool me. It does happen.
Right.
But for the most part, because I know the principles, I recognize it.
Right.
That is a huge key to navigating fear, is because once you recognize where the smoke, the mirrors, all that is, you're not really fooled by it. You just know, okay, the emotion's real. I acknowledge that that emotion is there, but I am not that emotion. I am not afraid. I am feeling afraid at the time, but that is not who I am. That is not congruent with my identity of that person 10 years from now. And so I adjust.
Awesome. So tell us where people can hear more about you, a new book you're working on. Like, where can they find more about Ken Hartley?
Yes, KenHartley.com, Hartley, KenHartley.com. And that's where people can find out about my speaking. They can go to the shop, see the books. This is book number 10 that I'm working on right now, which is Leadership Lessons from the Presidents. And despite the subject matter, it is not political in any way, shape, or form. It is solely based on leadership. It tells one good thing, one not so good thing. Every one of them did in the area of leadership, and hopefully gives us great lessons to learn from it. And it's been a fun journey doing that book. I've visited every presidential library, museum, gravesite, home, all of it. And it's been more than a 10-year journey to do that. So I'm excited about giving this book to everybody.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Penny, thank you for telling us all how we can reset. I've thoroughly enjoyed being on here, and it is great to call you friend.
Oh, thank you. And thank you all. We would love to call you friends too. We wish we could see you. Please do reach out and connect with us. Connect with Ken over LinkedIn, over his website. Connect with me over Substack, LinkedIn, or any other social media. We love to have these conversations for you, to share what we've learned, and would love to hear your practices as well. So please join us in the community, in the movement, to help to make more reset moments, to build those reset rhythms in every area of our life so that we can be happier, we can be healthier, and we can have more meaning in our lives. And we can believe in ourselves, in what we can accomplish. This is Time to Reset. My name is Penny Zanker, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.